Hey everyone, what's up? Today we're going to be jumping into Retouch for Me's brand new plugin called FaceMake. And if you're new to the channel, then you need to know that I love doing reviews and talking about plugins that make our photography workflows way more efficient and streamlined. Today we're going to be talking about FaceMake. And so FaceMake is a little bit different of a plugin. And what it does is allow you to make face modifications that are actually really cool and unique. And then there's some really far out there ones. And I can think of some niche scenarios where you would need to use them. So let's jump into it and I'll show you how to actually use it on a real client. All right. So when you first open FaceMake and you get it all installed and everything like that, you're going to see this and you just drag whatever image in that you want to touch up. When you first upload a photo, this is what you're going to see. Now, this photo is edited already. It's not raw. So this didn't come out of camera like this. So as you can see, there's some retouching that went on. I ran mattifier on this. I used dodge and burn, and I use portrait volumes on this. All other Retouch for Me plugins, which if you want to check out everything I'm going to talk about today, if you use code Flannery20, the link is in the description. It's on the screen right now too. You can get 20% off your order from Retouch for Me. It usually stacks with other sales that they got going on as well. So I would definitely try and put my code in there, even if there's another sale going on, because a lot of times you can kind of combine two of them to get a really sweet deal. All right, so we've done our touch-ups, and most of the time this would be good, except here is we're going to try and do some touch-ups because the makeup is lost in our lighting and touch-ups a little bit, and there's a few other tweaks we're going to do to try and elevate things and add an extra level of polish, because when you get into portrait photography, all the little touches where you do 5% here and 5% there add up to make you stand out amongst your competition. Anyways, when you first log in, you're going to see these options over here, and let me just go through them real quick. So you can go toggle your back and forth. I've made no changes in this, so you won't see anything. This is to kind of see how the program has mapped out the face. So you can make a few little tweaks if it's not just right. Using the edit face mesh tool, you can push and pull a few things around here with your brush, but it did a very good job. But just in case it gets it off, you can adjust your brush size if you need to, and you can push and pull. But I think we're good right from the get-go. And you can even come down here and let it know. You can use automatic, or you can say hey, this is a close-up of a face, like what you have of me in the corner, or it's a full-length portrait, full body. So it knows kind of where to focus. One little note, Retouch for Me hasn't seen this review before I put it up. It just gave me access to the software and wanted me to do my thoughts and impressions and things like that. One thing, I would love to see these be collapsible and expandable, even if they're not turned on. That's just one little UI tweak that I found when working with this a little bit. Okay, so you turn this on, and what lifting is going to do is it's going to try and sculpt the face a little bit. And it has these masculine or feminine. I'll show you what they do. But I actually don't really use these a lot, but I could see how some people would if they're using this to make things like thumbnails. So what this does is essentially reshapes the face to be a little bit more narrow in the chin. It plumps up the eyes, gives a little bit more volume to the hair. As you can see, there's that kind of before and after there. And it also makes the eyes a little bit larger, makes the eyebrows a bit thicker. It just sculpts a little bit. I could have seen this being a thing when we had a client who had an allergic reaction a couple of days before and her face was still a little bit swollen. I definitely would have tried to push this just a little bit to help that be a little bit more flattering of an image. So I could definitely see where this comes in handy. Also, this looks way more realistic than something like Facetune. And so feminine tries to accentuate the eyes. It tries to make the chin narrower. It makes the cheeks come up a little bit, right? To make them look a little bit more rounded. And then the masculine features do things they make the eyes a little bit squinchier and brings the forehead out, things that are stereotypically a little bit more masculine in terms of face, when you think of face shape. Yeah. So like I said, don't really play too much with that. And then what's really interesting here is you can kind of the roll off of it, how much kind of blending between the two do you want. And like I said, I don't really turn that on. Maybe we'll leave it at 5. And then the lips effect just tries to make them a little bit more perceptibly a little bit more rounder. Fun mode gives you a negative option, so you can actually distort the face. So this might be something where, let's go like negative, right? Where you're intentionally trying to make someone look weird for like a YouTube photo thumbnail. And if you're like consistently like editing people's faces and things like that, and you push it too far, it also lets you go like way past like the normal limit and things like that. So you get a little bit disfigured. So, um, we're gonna kind of turn this one off because we're not going to use the fun mode, quote unquote, but you can get fun with it. The other thing I want to say about this too is that you have credits you can use to run photos. So let's say you have one client who needs this. You could just buy a few credits, download this app, and make the changes that you need just for this one client. Even if you don't see yourself using it for forever, you just kind of pay for what you need. So if we go down to makeup, this is probably like the most useful thing. As you can see here, some of the makeup is getting washed out from the lighting and the color grading we got. And we want to accentuate it, but we also got a request to make the makeup match the balloons here in the background. And so we can do that. Also, if you want to test out makeup for yourself and you want to just like take a picture with some foundation on and some really good lighting, you can drop down here. Let's say you want to try like a smoke whisper look like she has, and you could really exaggerate it, right? And you can play with some of the colors here, which is really cool. And so we're going to try and match it to the pink. So where would that be? Be just around, I would say over here. That looks natural without looking too cartoonish. And we can dial that off or back on to where we want it. And I think that is actually really good. They have some crazy ones here too. Like we can go rainbow mask, right? And you can get kind of, like I said, really crazy with it if you want to, and really check a few things out. But I could see this being used for maybe some like editorial work and things like that. If you have a client and maybe your art director says, "Hey, this is not exactly the look we were going for," you can actually come in and change the look a little bit. So, we're going to go back up to the Smoke Whisper one because that's what we want. We're going to dial it back just a little bit and bring the color back over to this kind of pinky color at 60. I think that is good. The other thing here we can do with the lips is we can add different colors and different effects there. So plump lips, you can see that it adds a little bit of an outline and a defining edge to the lip as well, and plays with some contrast, but you can also play around with some color here too. We'll come back to that. There's a few different ones you can do, like different amounts of gloss even, as well as sparkle. It tries to add a little bit more to the lips. And like if you push it too far, like to 100, sometimes it's a little much, but if you dial it back, you can get something pretty usable. And so what I actually ended up delivering this photo on was on the luminescence. And we're trying to match some of that pink back there, as well as in the eyes as well. So we get a little bit of our before and after. And then she also said that she felt like she looked a little bit squinty. So what we can actually do then is go to Displace, and we can actually displace a specific feature. This one is called Big Eyes. And so you can see here, it was already turned on. And it does a pretty good job at making the eyes larger. However, we want it to fit in. And so with like the rest of the series of the pictures, but we want to use this one specifically as was called out and make it look realistic, but also like make the eyes stand out just a little bit more. And so if we go off, on, it's subtle, but it makes a pretty significant difference when you look at all the other changes that we've done. So check this out. Here we go. You can also add texture. And so this one's, okay, I just turned it on before I said anything, but this one gets a little bit weird. Essentially what it does is it like generates an image of a man or two different options for women based off of the face mesh that was created, right? You could see how that fits right in there. And you can actually kind of blend that in. So if you needed to, like, for some reason, do it like a gender swap kind of image, right? You can do that in here by playing around with these two sliders. And then we start to get something that's like a little bit more blended in. it could use a little bit of work, and it works a little bit better if you have like a straight on view instead of something that's like 3/4 like we have here. Um, but we don't want to. She wasn't requesting any more masculine features or to do like a little swap like that, so we're gonna turn it off. But you can do the same thing. Some of the other cool things here too is like we can add like a more narrow nose, and you could see it just kind of like brought the nose down a little bit too. Um, so if they want bigger, plumper lips. Unfortunately, you can only run one of these at a time. So you'd have to like save this image and then use your credit on it and then re-upload it and things like that. But I think we got like a pretty workable model here. And let's say we did want to push it. So let's add some lifting, right? Add some feminine stuff. Stuff like this is done on magazine covers all of the time. So if you go next time you're like at your like pharmacy, go and don't go through the drive-through, go in person, check out some of the magazines and like look at notable celebrities you've seen and look at the work that, the editors do on those magazine covers. And you'll see in those portraits, right, that they do some of this stuff. And this used to take hours to do this kind of thing in Photoshop, make it look realistic. There's a lot of like, hey, let me use the warp tool and push and nudge things. And it doesn't look right. Control Z, nudge a little different way. Control Z, find a different brush, nudge, change the flow. And this takes care of all that for you. And so this essentially speeds that up. And you saw how quick we've been talking here. It only took about 5 minutes of me going through this program to show you what it can do. And the beauty of it is that like you really only pay in terms of credits for what you save, right? So you just hit your little save here and like you can label it as well. Now, coming down here to reshape, it'll essentially reshape your face with proportions that are kind of preset. So like woman, right? I guess it's supposed to be more of like that golden ratio in terms of looks and things like that. Cartoon. Oh, and let me pull up the depth as well. So, you can get some pretty funky stuff with this if you want to. But you get a little bit more cartoonish, like, features here in the face. So here's that before and the after, right? You can tell that that's looking a little uncanny because we pushed it pretty far. But here's the before and the after. And if I just showed you this photo right here, you probably would have believed it, right? So we could make a lot of progress into kind of like shaping someone the way that they want to be perceived. And then open landmarks as well as Displace lets you upload a custom face that you can actually remap to. I haven't really played around with that much. I don't see necessarily a need to do that. Or I couldn't really figure out a reason why you would want to, but you can if you're someone who has figured out a need for it as well. So who's FaceMake for? Well, I can think of a few different things FaceMake is for. Someone whose face has to be featured on a lot of things and they want to be presented well all of the time. Somebody who might be slightly insecure. Somebody whose makeup didn't come out all that great or all that pronounced or they're not feeling it. An art director maybe gives you some adjustments to make on something like a photo cover or a billboard or things like that, and you need to edit it. Maybe you have like a great picture like we had, except your client says like, hey, I wish my eyes were open a little bit more, and you can kind of actually push it a little bit without making it look like, hey, that's not me. So what if a client like this one asks like, hey, I feel like I was squinting a little bit. Could you like edit it so my eyes are a little bit more open? Like that's a genuine use case, as well as like I'm thinking things for like YouTube thumbnails. Like if you need to like make a little bit more of a caricature of a face, or a caricature of a face for maybe a political cartoon, or maybe some sort of commentary. Need to grab attention in like a YouTube or Instagram reel thumbnail, things like that, I think would be a pretty solid use case for this. And it's pretty affordable. I would say go check it out. And the beauty of it is like, you can download it. You don't have to even pay for anything unless you want to keep the photo that you made, right? Unless you want to save it. So I would recommend if you're like, hey, I might use this at some point, or like this could potentially be something that I would use, go download it, right? And then you don't have to like use it until you're ready to use it, or you can play around with it for a little bit and only keep what you need. But I would like keep this as something in your back pocket, right? I don't think this is for necessarily somebody like who's going to go through a wedding series and edit all of these this way. all 800 photos that you're going to deliver this way. But I do think it's something, like I said, a little bit more niche than like some of the other tools that we've talked about by Retouch for Me. By the way, if you like the skin mattifier stuff and all of that and dodge and burn, I have another video on it. I'm going to put it up right now because this video is ending. And if you like this video at all and you want to see more AI workflow stuff and photography and video stuff, just hit like or subscribe and tell me in the comments what you liked about it. See you on the next one.